In the early months of 2011, a criminal group, whose very existence seemed like an urban legend, began leaving a trail of fear across Europe. They were not your ordinary thieves. No, these were masterminds of precision, experts in misdirection, and champions of disguise. In a span of just a few months, the world's most prestigious jewelry stores became their playground, their heists flawless in execution, and their identity a mystery that would remain unsolved for years. On one occasion, a priceless diamond, its value surpassing millions, vanished from a high-security vault located deep within the heart of one of Europe's financial capitals. But here's the thing. There were no forced entries, no broken locks, and no security footage to reveal the culprits. In fact, everything seemed perfectly normal after the theft. The security alarms never even went off, and the vault, despite being securely locked, was empty. No one had a clue how the heist was pulled off. Imagine being a detective in that case. How would you explain something so clean, so quiet, so impossible? The entire world watched in awe as the authorities scoured every corner for evidence. But the culprits seemed to disappear into thin air, leaving nothing behind but the stolen jewels and unanswered questions. Who were these elusive thieves? What drove them to target the world's most expensive treasures? How could they evade capture for years, leaving law enforcement scrambling to uncover their next move? What if I told you that this wasn't just one isolated incident, but a series of meticulous heists that stretched across multiple countries, all orchestrated by a criminal syndicate so well organized, they made the world's top investigators look like amateurs? Today, we're peeling back the layers of this world-renowned diamond heist gang, an organization that became notorious for its daring thefts, its cryptic methods, and its ability to remain one step ahead of the law. Welcome to the story of the Diamond Syndicate, a group whose name was whispered in fear and admiration from the halls of high-end jewelers to the offices of international law enforcement. This is the story of the Diamond Syndicate, a criminal group whose name, though unknown to most, struck terror into the hearts of law enforcement across Europe. From 2011 to 2015, this sophisticated and elusive gang pulled off some of the most daring and audacious diamond heists in modern history, targeting high-profile locations across multiple countries. Their operations were always executed with surgical precision. At first glance, these heists appeared to be the work of ordinary thieves, stealthy but not overly complex. However, as the authorities began piecing the evidence together, a disturbing pattern emerged. The gang's ability to bypass the most sophisticated security systems in the world, often without leaving a single trace behind, indicated that they were not just ordinary criminals. They were masterminds, highly organized and shockingly methodical in their approach. In one of their most notorious heists, a priceless diamond, valued at several $1 million, was stolen from a vault in a high-security luxury jewelry store in a major European city. The police arrived to find the vault completely secure. No forced entry, no broken locks. The security systems, typically foolproof, had remained unbreached. But the diamond was gone, vanished without a trace. The staff, unaware of what had just transpired, went about their business as usual, leaving investigators to wonder how such a sophisticated heist had been carried out without anyone noticing. And it didn't stop there. These criminals struck again and again, each time using a different method, each time evading detection. Despite the extensive resources put into the investigation, the authorities were unable to even identify the members of the gang. Who were these thieves? How did they manage to steal such priceless treasures without leaving behind a single clue? What made them so elusive, so untouchable? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, how many jewels did they steal before anyone even realized they were under attack? This is the story of the Diamond Syndicate, a criminal organization whose heists left law enforcement baffled and who, for years, remained shadows in the dark. Their audacity and precision made them one of the most successful criminal organizations of the 21st century. And their escape from justice, one of the most frustrating mysteries in modern criminal history. The Diamond Syndicate wasn't just a random collection of criminals. It was an organized and highly strategic group operating under a strict code of silence. Their methods were so precise, so well planned, that they were able to bypass some of the most cutting-edge security systems in Europe's most prestigious locations. But what drove them to commit these daring heists? The members of the Diamond Syndicate were not your typical street-level thieves. They were former professionals, people with backgrounds in various high-skill areas, technology, engineering, and even inside knowledge of the luxury goods industry. One of the gang's most brilliant members was believed to have had a former career in private security, giving them a unique insight into the weaknesses of the very systems that were supposed to protect valuable assets. This insider knowledge was crucial, allowing them to disable alarm systems, bypass security cameras, and disable biometric scans, all without ever being detected. The gang itself operated with an almost military-like precision, each member playing a specific role. From the mastermind who planned every heist in detail, to the getaway drivers who ensured a smooth and untraceable escape, every member was trained for their part in the operation. It was said that the crew never worked with outsiders. Trust within their group was the highest priority. There was no room for error, and no one could afford to make a mistake. They weren't just stealing diamonds, they were making a statement. Their goal was not only financial, it was about outsmarting the system, proving their superiority over authorities, and creating a reputation that would make their name feared across the globe. The members kept their identities hidden, operating from the shadows. Even though many of the heists took place in high-profile locations like Paris, Geneva, and London, no one ever seemed to get a glimpse of who was behind these crimes. The precision and secrecy with which they executed their plans led some to believe that the group was possibly operating with inside help from people working at these luxury stores, or perhaps even the security companies themselves. The perfect plan: no loose ends, no fingerprints, no surveillance footage to trace. Each of these heists was a meticulous operation. The group had access to the most advanced tools and techniques, often using cutting-edge technology to override security features and ensure they were never seen or heard. Their victims were often completely unaware that they had been targeted until it was far too late. And then, there was the part that still baffles investigators: the escape. After each successful robbery, the Diamond Syndicate vanished into thin air. Their meticulous planning included escape routes and methods so flawless that even with extensive surveillance, law enforcement could never track them. They made it seem like the theft was part of a larger, more complex system of criminal activity that was untouchable. This was no ordinary gang, and the more the authorities investigated, the more they realized just how deeply embedded the syndicate was in the world of high-stakes international crime. Their ability to remain unseen, even as they struck at the heart of Europe's wealthiest institutions, added a new layer of mystery to their story. The real question became, who were they really, and how did they get away with it for so long? The first signs of the Diamond Syndicate's existence began to surface in late spring of a particular year, when a massive heist unfolded in the heart of one of Europe's most exclusive cities. It was a city known for its luxury, famous for being home to the world's wealthiest, most influential figures. Within one of the most secure jewelry stores, a vault containing diamonds worth millions sat under layers of protection. State-of-the-art surveillance systems, armed security personnel, and a carefully designed alarm system had made it almost impossible to breach. Yet in a matter of hours, the store was left completely empty, its prized possessions gone without a trace. The crime itself was shocking, not only because of the scale, but due to the sophistication involved. The heist had been executed with the precision of a military operation. No alarms had gone off, no security guards had been alerted, and most baffling of all, no footage existed of the perpetrators. It was as if the crime had been orchestrated by ghosts, perfectly timed and executed, with each member of the syndicate playing their part flawlessly. On the night of the heist, the city's bustling streets were filled with activity, a distraction that worked in the gang's favor. While most of the city's police force were focused on responding to a high-profile event, the Diamond Syndicate made their move. The first thing they did was disable the surveillance cameras that monitored the exterior of the jewelry store. The system had been hacked remotely, and before the authorities could even respond, the cameras inside the building began looping pre-recorded footage, leaving the store completely blind to what was happening inside. Inside the store, the crew took precise, calculated steps. They knew exactly where to find the vault's key codes. It was later revealed that one of the syndicate members had once worked as a contractor for the security company that maintained the vault system. Armed with this insider knowledge, the gang was able to bypass every level of security and gain direct access to the vault's digital keypad. A few keystrokes later, and they had access to the priceless diamonds stored within. Time was a crucial factor, but the gang moved with a calm efficiency, undisturbed by the constant hum of the store's alarm system that never went off. In less than 30 minutes, the gang had emptied the vault, taking diamonds, emeralds, and other rare jewels, each piece a valuable commodity in the black market. They left no physical evidence behind, no fingerprints, no DNA, no footprints. It was as if they had never even been there. The getaway was equally flawless. Using an elaborate escape plan, the syndicate members dispersed quickly after leaving the jewelry store. They had already prearranged safe houses and vehicles, and by the time the authorities were notified, the gang was miles away from the scene, without any trace of their whereabouts. When investigators arrived at the scene, they were shocked. The only thing they could find were the faint traces of a high-tech hacking tool used to break into the building's security systems. There were no surveillance tapes to analyze and no suspects to question. All they had were the missing jewels and the mystery of how the Diamond Syndicate had managed to pull off such a high-profile robbery without being detected. For weeks, the authorities searched for clues, trying to piece together how the gang had carried out such an intricate crime. The crime was discussed across news outlets, but the Diamond Syndicate's name had yet to be linked to the heist. Even as the media buzzed with speculation, law enforcement remained silent, unable to provide any answers or leads. It was clear that the Diamond Syndicate had struck a major blow, but little did the world know, this would be just the beginning of a series of meticulously planned heists that would span across Europe. The true extent of their operations was yet to be revealed. The response from authorities was swift, but it was clear from the beginning that this wasn't going to be an ordinary case. Investigators had no idea where to begin. The crime was carried out with such precision that it seemed almost as if the Diamond Syndicate had anticipated every possible hurdle and planned for it. No fingerprints, no DNA, no surveillance footage, and no witnesses. Only the vanishing of priceless jewels, leaving the detectives to scratch their heads in disbelief. As the investigation continued, the complexity of the crime only deepened. The police had initially hoped that surveillance footage from neighboring stores or street cameras might provide a clue, but every lead turned into a dead end. The hackers who had disabled the cameras inside the store had done their job too well. Authorities also struggled to connect the dots with any other criminal organizations. Nothing about the syndicate's operation resembled previous high-profile heists carried out by other notorious groups. One of the early theories suggested that the gang might have used sophisticated, state-of-the-art technology to bypass the security systems. Investigators began examining the digital traces left behind, only to discover that the tool used to breach the vault's security was custom-built, something that had never been seen in previous cases. How did such a small, seemingly unknown gang get access to technology of this caliber? Weeks turned into months, and the police still hadn't found a single solid lead. Suspicion fell on a number of potential suspects, but all were quickly ruled out as the investigation grew more convoluted. One of the most talked about theories was that an insider had been involved. After all, the level of precision involved, particularly in knowing the exact locations of security systems and vaults, suggested an intimate knowledge of the building's operations. This theory pointed to a potential mole, possibly someone who had previously worked with the company maintaining the security systems or a disgruntled former employee. But as the investigation continued, a far more chilling theory began to emerge. What if the syndicate wasn't a single group, but a network of highly skilled criminals working under the radar? The complexity of the heist and the sheer number of individuals involved in the planning raised this possibility. Detectives began to wonder if there was a much larger organization behind the Diamond Syndicate, one with deep financial backing and a vast global reach. The more they dug, the more they realized that these thieves weren't just opportunistic criminals. They were part of a well-organized syndicate that had been operating under the radar for years. One theory that gained traction was the involvement of underground diamond traders. Diamonds, after all, are highly valuable and difficult to trace once they are removed from the legal market. The black market for diamonds had always existed, and the diamond syndicate could easily be funneling the stolen jewels to an international network of buyers. A former police investigator, familiar with the underground trade, speculated that the gang could be using high-end contacts in the diamond industry to move the gems without attracting attention. This theory added another layer of intrigue to the already complex case. If true, it meant that this wasn't just a few criminals committing isolated heists, but a much larger, well-funded operation with international reach. But even with all these theories floating around, the fact remained that no one knew who was behind the crime. The syndicate remained a shadowy enigma, elusive, calculating, and seemingly beyond the reach of law enforcement. As months went by, the case grew cold, and the media attention shifted to other high-profile events. But in the world of international crime, a network as well organized as the Diamond Syndicate would not remain dormant for long. One investigator, who had been closely following the case, began to think that the syndicate had been careful enough to lay low for a while, waiting for the heat to die down before striking again. And sure enough, over the next several years, a series of similar heists began to take place. They were smaller in scale, but the same signature tactics, disabling security, bypassing vaults, and leaving no trace, made it clear that the same group was responsible. Yet still, no one could get close to identifying the criminals behind these daring crimes. In the midst of these ongoing heists, law enforcement continued to speculate on how they operated. Were they operating out of a single country, or were they truly an international network? Were they funded by powerful criminal organizations, or were they simply a group of highly skilled thieves? Investigators were also forced to consider the possibility that the syndicate wasn't operating in isolation, but rather working in collaboration with other criminal syndicates across Europe and beyond. While certain members of the organization were eventually arrested in connection to smaller crimes, the true masterminds behind the group remained elusive, always one step ahead of the law. As the case of the Diamond Syndicate continues to intrigue and baffle investigators, the mystery remains open. The shocking nature of their heists, the unsolved disappearances of millions in diamonds, and the chilling lack of closure on this global criminal network make it one of the most captivating and unsettling cases in modern crime history. But despite the decades of investigation, the question remains, will the true masterminds of the Diamond Syndicate ever face justice? Now it's your turn. What do you think? Was this an operation of pure criminal genius, or was there something even darker at play, hidden motivations that we may never understand? Could there be even more to this story, more players involved in a global conspiracy that is still unraveling? I want to hear your thoughts. What are your theories? Who do you think is behind these crimes? Could the masterminds be someone still out there, pulling strings from the shadows? Leave your theories and comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Every perspective brings us closer to understanding the true scope of this criminal empire. Stay tuned, because this isn't the only case like this.